freelance writer on historical subjects. His historical subject tonight, Thomas Jefferson and Islamic fundamentalism.
When word reached Monticello in the summer of 1801 that the U.S. consulate in Libya had been sacked by a mob, that the consul, his wife and baby girl had to flee for their lives to the safety of the Danish embassy, where they hid for 10 days until smuggled from the city, President Thomas Jefferson was not surprised. For 17 years, he had been the country's leading hawk for war against militant Islam. Is that surprising, that this gentle deist philosopher, supposed pacifist, the father of American liberalism, was so bellicose? Since 1784, hijacking and hostage-taking by the Muslimen, as Muslims were then called, had plagued the country, while he, John Adams, and Ben Franklin had been the first American diplomats to negotiate for hostages. There were 14 the day he became Secretary of State in 1790, more than 100 when he stepped down in 1793. By the time he entered the White House, scores of Americans had died in hellish slavery, and the government had spent millions on ransom, tribute, and building a navy to meet the menace. The conservative Federalists had followed European-style diplomacy in the Mediterranean, submitting to the kidnappers' demands. But Jefferson was adamant. What galled him was not only the presence of cash, gold, silver, jewelry, but the arms shipments that completed the blackmail. His word. Cannon, tar, pitch, shot, whole warships. Our first military assistance program overseas. Worse, the kidnappers weren't even real pirates, but Islamic fundamentalists who justified their terrors by their faith. For Barbary pirates was a colloquial and misleading term. Europeans called them that because they preyed exclusively on unarmed merchant ships. But in their own eyes, they were soldiers of the jihad, mujahideen. Unlike the freebooting buccaneers of the Spanish Main, these pirates were, simply, the official navies of 4 sovereign powers carrying out state policy. It was religious, state-sponsored piracy, sanctioned by the jihad. In Barbary days, one man's pirate was another man's mujahid. In 1786, in a hotel room in London, Jefferson and Adams held a secret session with a Libyan ambassador who demanded $100,000 not to begin taking hostages. Sheikh Abdurrahman explained the jihad to them, declared it was his sacred duty to make war on sinners, and that he did not recognize the rules of war against kidnapping civilians because these were written by non-believers. So, on his mountaintop in the summer of 1801, Thomas Jefferson was not surprised. And he had his war. It lasted the 4 years of his first term. One hero was John Rogers. Another commanded the battle schooner USS Enterprise, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur, Jr., after whom 20 American towns and counties would be named. It climaxed with an invasion to the shores of Tripoli, which was, in effect, a successful hostage rescue mission, one of whose heroes was Marine Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon. When the war ended, Congress investigated, justified the president, and, quote, roundly condemned now and for all time the payment of tribute by the United States of America for any reason to any foreign potentate. We look back at the founders, at their powdered wigs and buckled shoes, and say we are not them. We've changed. We've progressed. Maybe. But can we say the same of others? In 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini did not recognize the inviolability of embassies and other laws he had no hand in writing. In 1983, the destroyer USS John Rogers patrolled the coast of Lebanon, while the Islamic Jihad killed 241 Marines. In 1986, Navy jets pounded Tripoli as the aircraft carrier Enterprise steamed for Libya. In the winter of 1987, the USS O'Bannon cruised the Persian Gulf, as dozens of foreigners were prisoners of the Party of God. And this summer, Congress investigates the paying of ransom for Americans held hostage by Islamic Jihad.